Hey, what's up? Justin here with 65 Drums, and today I'm going to be doing my review of the Simmons DA2012B drum amp. Also in the second part of the video, I'm going to be showing you how to take any hi-hat that's mounted on the drum rack and put it on a dedicated hi-hat stand, and you only have to spend like 60 bucks in parts to make that happen. Okay, starting off with the drum amp review. There's not really much that I don't like about this drum amp. This is actually a very solid offering. If you've been following the electronic drum market for the last little bit, you'll have noticed that there seems to be like this wave of PA speakers being rebranded as drum amps. I know that some people might think that's a little bit cheesy, but I am 100% on board with that because unfortunately, we've got a lot of crappy drum amps out there on the market, but this is not one of them. I actually like this, and for like $270, this is actually a pretty good deal. Now, you'll notice that there's another one from Alesis that looks very, very similar. And to me, I thought that they were just rebranding the exact same speaker, but looking into it, the ports on both of these speakers are completely different. And also, like, I believe some of like the handles are a little bit different, so they are different speakers in case you were wondering. Okay, so starting off with the front of the speaker, you'll notice that the logo is sideways. So it's kind of meant out of the box to be put on the ground sideways, and it does sound pretty good that way. However, they also have a pole mount on the bottom of it, and there's a little mode switch on the back of the speaker, so you can put it on a pole, as you can see behind me right here. It sounds good in either configuration. I kind of do like it mounted up a little bit higher though. One thing that I've noticed about Simmons is that they like to have little hidden references back to the 80s when they were a really huge company. And you'll see that if you look at the front of the speaker grill, you have two halves of a hexagon imprinted into that grill. Now moving on to the sides of the drum amp, you can see that there are little feet so you can put this sideways on the ground. There's also feet in case you want to just stand it upright. Now it does have two handles, one on top and one on the side. They're rubberized, so they feel really nice as you're like lifting this up. And then moving on to the back of the drum amp, you'll notice that there's a lot of inputs and a lot of stuff going on here. So on this speaker, you get 3 channels of right and left audio, which is nice. You don't need to take up 2 channels, one channel for the right outputs and then one for the left output from your drum set, which is cool. And then on channel 3, they also have an 1/8 inch aux input connection. So you don't need to have an adapter if you have a certain kind of cable. And then they also have a Bluetooth connectivity feature. So if you don't have a drum module like a TD17 that has Bluetooth connectivity, you can just connect your cell phone to the speaker itself and not the drum module, so you save a cable there, and then you can listen to Spotify and drum along to it. So that's a nice thing to have. In testing the Bluetooth feature, I found that I could get about 2 rooms away in line of sight with my cell phone, and I would still have a connection to the speaker. And I also found that I could walk the room above where the speaker was, and I would still be connected and even go a little bit off from there. So the range is pretty good, not amazing, not bad. It's kind of like average or slightly above average. Moving a little bit over to the right, you can see that you got controls for bass and treble. So if you need your drum set to be even more bassy, you can control that here. And then of course, just like any PA or monitor speaker, it has XLR connections, so you can chain multiples of these speakers together. Now that's not really what I've done with my setup. Because the speakers are so close to the drum module, I've just connected 1 1/4 inch cable from the drum module going from the right output to the right speaker, and the left output going to the left speaker. So I have a stereo signal and I didn't need to chain the speakers together. But it's nice to have, and it is a standard feature on speakers like this. And then moving up a little bit higher on the speaker, you'll see some mode buttons where you can tell the speaker that it's either laying sideways or that it's standing upright. And you can also boost the overall volume of the speaker there as well. If you do activate that mode, you're gonna raise the hissing sound that naturally comes from the speaker, so I wouldn't turn that on unless you actually need that extra volume boost. Now, as far as the overall sound of the speaker, I'll be the first to admit that I am not a speaker expert. I work as a stagehand in the musical and concert industry, and I know the people that actually are speaker experts, and I'm not one of them. But at least I can give you an opinion based off of like an average drummer's experience. So I think the speaker sounds pretty nice. It's got a very nice sonic profile, at least to my ears. The highs are definitely present, but not overly in your face. The mids are where they need to be, and the lows are pretty bassy. This is not to say you need to go buy a subwoofer. This thing can handle your drums by itself, but if you want some of those really, really low frequencies to be very prominent, you might want to link one. Overall, these speakers, I've never had an issue where they were just too quiet. I've never needed to max out the volume of these speakers. This can handle most of what you throw at it, and you can even plug in a keyboard or a guitar as well, and it will handle that too. Okay, so moving ahead to the pros and cons list, here's the stuff that I really liked and didn't like about this speaker system. On the plus side, I think it's at a pretty good price, $270. There might be cheaper PA speakers out there, but having all the features that this has, I think it's fair for what it's asking for. I like the fact that this has got Bluetooth, it's got an 1/8 inch input, it's got plenty of 1/4 inch inputs, it gets plenty loud. I like the bass response from this. And overall, I think it's a pretty good package. I also like the fact that you can mount it on a pole. On the con side, there's really not much that I don't like about it. If I had to pick one thing that I wish they included, I really wish that they had an extra, a control for the mids. This only has a 2-band EQ. You can't control the mids at all. If you do want to control the mids, you could just buy a really cheap mixer for like $100. Also, it would be cool if they had an extra like XLR input or something like that. Overall, I really like what they got here. I think the pricing is pretty good. And yeah, I think it's worth buying. Is it the greatest speaker of all time? Well, no, not really. But again, it's $270. They're delivering on what they're charging here, and I like it overall. One thing I want to mention is that some people asked in my other drum amp review, why didn't you show us what it sounded like? And unfortunately with drum amps, you can't really get across what a speaker sounds like in a review. Same with like headphones or in-ears. It's just, you can't show what it actually sounds like in real life. I could mic this thing and show you, me playing it or something, but you'd be hearing what this speaker system sounds like through a drum module that I have, through the acoustics of the room, through the frequency response range of a microphone that I have, then compressed by YouTube. You're basically hearing what this sounds like to a microphone that I have. You don't know what it actually sounds like. I'd really go check this out in a store and see if you like the way it sounds in person. Let's move ahead to the hi-hat question. So that's the Simmons SD1200 right there. Of course, the hi-hat is mounted to the drum rack itself, and people are asking me how to put that on a physical hi-hat stand instead. To make this work, you're going to need a couple of components. You're going to need a hi-hat controller piece that goes on the bottom of the stand. So whenever the hi-hat cymbal goes and presses this down, it activates it and tells the drum module that your cymbal is halfway closed or all the way closed, or however much pressure you're putting on the stand. You're going to need one of these, and then you're going to need some very skinny hi-hat mounting hardware. So these two things. Now this one is from Roland. This is the one on the VH10 hi-hats. The VH11 hi-hat has one very similar to that. But you can buy one from Edrum for $50. This is the cheapest, most efficient way to do it. The second thing is you're going to need to buy a piece of hardware so you can mount it onto the hi-hat stand. Make sure that it's pretty skinny because remember, it needs to fit in this little middle rubber piece right there. If you buy a really large piece of hi-hat mounting hardware, you're physically going to have to make this a larger gap in order to fit that. If you buy one that's really skinny like this, you won't really have to ruin the cymbal very much, basically. So once you get that piece of hardware inside of your top cymbal piece like that, now it's a top hi-hat cymbal, you need to go grab your hi-hat controller that you bought for $50, slide that on the hi-hat stand. You're probably going to want to buy a little piece of felt as well, or just find one from your drum set. Put that there as the go-between, a little cushion between the plastic controller piece and your top cymbal, and then just put this on top right there. It's really, really easy, and you can do it for not that much money. So I just finished filming all those test footage clips that you just saw. And I've come to the conclusion, and you probably have already noticed this from watching the videos, that it doesn't work as well with the Simmons as I had hoped. I tested it briefly, and that's why I knew it technically worked, but I didn't know if it had full compatibility. If you do want to use this, it will instantly make the drum set more fun to play, but you're going to give up some of that dynamic range. You're not going to have full access to all of the open and closed variations. This works a lot better on the Roland drum modules that I've owned. I've tested this on the TD30 and the TD17. The Simmons drum module just doesn't give you many hi-hat controls in the trigger settings. This company has optimized that hi-hat for that particular hi-hat controller. So just know that if you do want to buy this, more power to you. It's more fun to play this, but you are giving up some of that dynamic range. So it's kind of like a choice you're going to have to make. But hey, if nothing else, maybe you found the whole experiment interesting to watch anyway. Hey, have an amazing day. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. I really appreciate it. You're the real MVPs, and I'll see you all in a few.